and welcome back to Session 6 of our series, Are You Loving It? Unlocking Power in Everyday Life. It's hard to believe, but we only have one more session after this. And I really hope that you've been enjoying your discussion times as much as I've enjoyed reading Gary Chapman's book. It's just been a tremendous read about how to have healthy relationships and developing those traits that contribute to healthy relationships. And today, again, we're going to be talking about generosity, which Gary says is really the giving of yourself to others. Generosity is the giving of yourself to others. Oftentimes, we think of generosity as giving stuff, giving of our finances. But really, generosity goes much deeper than that. While it may end with actions or giving, Gary says it really begins with an attitude of the heart. For instance, when I was back in college attending church on a Sunday night, there was this elderly gentleman who came up and introduced himself to me. And he started talking to me and about life and where I was from and those kind of things. And I explained to him that I was going to Bible college, studying to be a minister. And when he discovered that as an expression of gratitude, he gave me $2 out of his wallet and told me to go buy myself a hamburger. I was thankful for that. I'm not really sure when he had his last hamburger, though, because at that time, hamburgers were a little more than $2. But again, it wasn't the gift that expressed his generosity. It was his attitude. He sincerely meant well for me and took the time to get to know me. And I appreciated that very much, which again teaches us that generosity is not necessarily about how much you're able to give, as about the attitude you're able to give with. In fact, as I talk about that, let me just share a few thoughts from Gary's book about how we can be generous with the people around us. First one he says is, while you may not have money, you might have time. Like if you go back to that experience, here was a gentleman who gave me all the money in his wallet. That was like $2. Obviously, he didn't have much to give, but what he did have was time. And rather than trying to leave service at a prompt time so he could meet with his friend down at the local Tim Hortons and make sure that he was first in line and didn't have to wait, he was willing to put his own agenda on hold so he could introduce himself to me, so he could get to know me and make me feel welcome. He was willing to give his time. See, often it's tempting for us to just want to throw money at people when what they're really craving is our attention. What they're really craving is our time. Number 2 he shares is, while you may not have money to give, God has blessed you with an ability. Generosity says, how can I use the ability, how can I use the gift that I've been blessed with to bless somebody else? Again, in my own life, I've had an experience with this as well, where shortly after being hired on staff here at Fremont Wesleyan, I started having vehicle trouble with my '98 Ford Explorer, and if you know me at all, I don't have very good experience with mechanical type problems. I'm not really good at working on vehicles or lawnmowers or any of those kinds of things. It's not my gifting. But I called up one of my friends that I knew who was very gifted at working with vehicles and mechanics and those kind of things. And, we agreed that if I would pay for the part to fix the vehicle, he would do the fixing for free. And I very much appreciate that. And what's really cool about that is that oftentimes generosity begets generosity. You've heard of the movie Pay It Forward, perhaps. And that's the same concept. Because my friend is generous with me, it causes me to want to be generous with others. And those who I am generous with, hopefully, will be generous with the next person and right on down the line. So the question becomes, in this context, how has God blessed me? And again, how am I using what I have been blessed with to bless others? Number 3, Gary shares with us, is that some of us are blessed either financially or we have lots of things. And generosity in this scenario says, how can I use what I have to bless somebody else who does not have? And honestly, I find this one kind of difficult to relate to, because I feel like although I'm not abundantly wealthy, I've always had enough, and sometimes I've had more than enough. So I'm compelled to give when I see the mission and the direction of the local church and the ministries that they have, both in local context and in global context. It compels me to give. When I get a phone call from the American Cancer Society or the Disabled Veterans Foundation, I'm compelled to give, or different organizations like that. I'm compelled to give. And sometimes even if I'm unable to give at that moment on the phone, I just say, hey, give me a call back next time, which just again points out that it's not necessarily about what you can give as much as it is about the attitude of your heart. Now, before we move on to our discussion today, let me share with you what Gary calls the competitor to generosity. He says the competitor to generosity is our own agenda. It's busyness, even busyness with good things. But if we truly want to unlock power in relationships and in our everyday life and communicate that we value people, we will be willing to put our agenda on hold in order to be generous with our time, with our abilities, and with our finances. So, in today's study, we're actually going to take a look at 2 Corinthians chapter 8 and 9, and that's going to give us a picture of what generosity looked like in the early church. Again, I hope you are enjoying our time together. I know I am, and I hope you enjoy the study. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.